No.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's from my garden.
Oh, that's great.
I know. Actually, my grandma.
Oh, yeah. That would cause a bigger problem with that.
Show you.
Yep, we're all set.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the April 15th Hartland Selectboard meeting. It's 5:35. Yours truly was late. The first order of business is to approve the April 1st minutes. I would entertain a motion to accept those minutes. So moved. Thank you, Tom. A second. Thank you, Trace. Any discussion? Are we set on the minutes? Okay. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Next are the orders or the accounts payable through today, April the 15th. Again, I would entertain a motion to accept them. So moved. Thank you, Tom. A second. I'll second. Thank you, Clyde. Any discussion? I can find them. Let's see, conservation grant income of 65,000. Where'd that come from?
Richard, jump in. That's the budget.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Did you get? They weren't in the packet.
It wasn't. Yeah, I thought I looked. No, it wasn't. It was all the budget. It's just all budget. Thank you. Okay. Let me bear in detention. I make motion we table the accounts payable to the next meeting. Is there a second?
Does that mean we can't send the checks out?
We have to see it.
They're on the warrant.
Oh, is this it? Just the one page? Oh,
There's two, yeah, it said front and back.
Oh.
Front and back in the folder. There's just not a copy in everybody's packet.
oh, okay. Yeah, I don't have any problem with those. Okay,
That's what you would get in your packet.
okay. It's usually multiple pages, Martin. That's why I was
Because it's spread out with descriptions and everything. That's just.
Okay. Okay, and you want to take a look, Clyde, or are you all set? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Okay. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? I have one. I'd like to have a discussion and action on the letter of support that we were asked to write to the Upper Valley Land Trust for the conservancy of the Pole property. When I sent it out today, I didn't receive this until last Friday or so, so it's pretty, but I'd like to have that, add that to new business if folks are comfortable. Okay. Going on, are there public comments?
There is no comments online.
Okay. I'd like to make just a short thank you to the Garden Club. I attended their presentation yesterday afternoon with Jenny Talbot, which was rather good. And I think we're all enjoying the bulbs that were planted right out in front. It's going to be quite spectacular in the weeks ahead. So I want to thank the Garden Club. And I know yesterday they were talking about what they're going to do in that area next year. Moving on to old business, we have the every quarterly update of this year's budget. John?
Martin.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I labeled all the pages. And we'll start with the general fund revenue. As you can see, we have our revenue is up for the year. Your question, Tom, is if you follow that line across, it's actually under miscellaneous income.
Right.
And it's for the weed property that we sold.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So page 2 of the general fund revenues, you'll see that we have collected $52,755 more than what we budgeted for so far this year. In that is also the grant. You'll see the grant revenue. A lot of those grant revenues, the expenses show up on the expense side of the general fund. So we have to separate revenues from expenses in governmental accounting. So most of the revenues you see in the grant are spent somewhere else in the expenses on the general fund. Any questions on the revenues for the general fund?
This question is on the last page for the highway. We're not the highway yet.
We're not
that.
Yeah.
Any questions on general fund revenue? All right, highway revenue. Go ahead, Tom.
What is the sort of looks like a wish list there? There's nothing budgeted, but do we have a list of different projects?
So over the past years, that's what happened. So the
Okay,
Mesa Hill
okay.
Culvert was washed out in 2019.
Yeah. You don't have to go through the list. I was just curious.
Yep. The money, we will not receive grants and aids, the $31,000 this year because of the flooding in July. So they stopped the project. We are eligible to do it this year. We don't have to fill out paperwork. It just, the state just paused it till this year. So we can do that this year. So then we go on to the general fund expenses. Through the end of March, we're 75% through the year. This goes through the end of March. Any specific questions on each page or?
Just the animal control officer, was 177%. So what are the big?
So $1,000 was to Upper Valley Humane Society to get the dogs out. That was repaid by Nintendo. We had I can't remember, it's $1,400 or $1,700 bill from Claremont Animal Hospital, but I didn't get it until after he got his dogs back. So we've been sending him a bill each month to try and collect the money, and we've gotten nothing yet.
Okay.
If Claremont had sent it earlier, I could have held the dogs, and he would have had to pay everything up for it. So.
Okay.
So assessments is over. Trace, we have to prepay a lot of that in July for the whole year. So that's why that's over budget. It will catch up by the end of the fiscal year, by the end of June. So like if you look at the Greater Upper Valley Solid Waste, we had to pay them $31,014. That's due in July.
Right.
So most of the expenses in here are for we have to pay it in July. As you purvey down through the general fund budget, you'll see all departments are within budget. We're tracking very well this year. So if you get to the last page.
Martin,
Oh, yes, sorry.
As you say that, on page 5, the rec center is at 167%. It's like for the infrastructure?
Yes, so we bought basketball backboards this year, and we felt it could stay in the budget. We can transfer the money. John has it in the building fund of the rec side if we need it. I don't feel we're gonna need to take it out of that fund.
Okay.
I think the budget can absorb it okay this year. And we fixed the tennis courts up at North Hartland. Snowmobile decided to go across it with their studs.
So on the planning commission for professional services, so we've only billed $1,350 roughly, and that's
Through
for
the end of March,
active,
but there is
for the
a,
Active 50 stuff.
no, so the bills came in April. So there's a $3,300 lawyer bill that we were paying. I believe it was in the
For the Active 50.
yes. Yep, that's finally starting to catch up. So that will show up next month. As you work your way down through, you'll see appropriations, trace the same thing. I usually pay the appropriations in September. The fire department and the rescue squad get half in September and half in February.
Page 9, just a footnote, I think we should, for next year's budget cycle, add an amount for legal and professional fees for the library.
Yes, you'll see I added it there. It's 7,825. Go a little bit above your highlight there. It should be on there.
Yeah, professional services.
Yeah, it has a zero balance at this moment in time.
Okay,
But I did add that in.
thank you.
So if we get to the last page and I deduct the prepays that we've prepaid and estimate them at 75%. The budget we've expended so far is 71%. So we're supposed to be at 75%. The budget is at actual 71% spent. As you can see, we are staying on course within the roadmap. We're 4% under budget at this point. The staff has worked hard to try and work in the budget that we put together 2 years ago.
I think another note, in driving around, we're starting to see more and more junk on properties.
We gotta start sending letters out.
Yeah.
It's getting pretty bad.
Yeah, we gotta start sending letters out.
Certain properties.
Yeah. Cause I sent one out when I was, or two out when I was interim, the 2 properties. Yeah, we gotta start.
I was just
sending
speaking with the former ordinance administrator about it the other day.
Any questions on the general fund? So we go to the highway fund. The highway fund blew up in July. But the highway fund actually, if there's no question through it, if you go to the last page, it says we're 80.36%. We're supposed to be 75%. So the highway budget is 5% over budget, even though we blew it up in July. I think it rebounded fairly well this month. The highway budget, payroll's not in, all the expenses aren't in. The highway budget's almost back on track. It's hard to believe. So I think the highway fund, if we can get the FEMA money in, I think the highway fund will rebound okay this year. FEMA is slowly dragging their feet. John has okayed 2 roads out of 5 or 6 so far. So we're hoping to get the FEMA money in before the end of the fiscal year. But the two roads they did, Town Farm and Reeves Road, are the most expensive roads that we fixed. So hopefully those will be coming in sooner versus later.
So those are completed.
Yep, those are completed.
And we're getting 100% reimbursement for one and almost everything for the other one.
So that represented the 500,000 in a under summer maintenance.
Oh, yes, right, yeah. If you go back to summer maintenance, you'll see that subcontract is way over budget. You'll see hard pack is over budget. Culverts, the price of culverts went absolutely crazy, and stone is over budget for the FEMA event in July last year. So I think the highway fund, I think it's going to rebound nicely. It won't be we won't be deficit spending if we get the money in, I don't believe. But it depends what happens over the next couple months, obviously, because in 2019, we had 4 roads wash out. So it just depends how it rolls in. The winter maintenance stayed right in budget. It's actually under budget by 18%. So that helps the department as a whole. So.
Pretty mild.
Yeah. Absolutely. Any questions on the highway fund expense?
Looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think we're in pretty good shape.
Great.
We followed the roadmap. The staff has paid attention to detail, and
A little bit later this evening, when we get to talk culverts, I'm looking to see what the balance of our held, used to be ARPA funds are.
yes, John has that. I sent you that spreadsheet. I thought you wanted that for tonight.
I'm not sure that ever came into my inbox, but
Okay.
yeah.
I think ARPA funds are around
Yes.
$950,000.
Okay.
Right. The only thing we've expended money on with ARPA money is the pathways contract.
No, we haven't spent that yet.
Well,
We're going to.
it's allocated,
Yes.
right? The Heritage Engineering contract for Mill Street.
Sure.
In Otter Creek. So yeah, I think we spent 30, 60. Yeah, so we're about 950,000 left in ARPA money.
Yeah, Two Rivers reminded us that some ARPA reporting is due.
Yes, April 30th.
April
Done.
30th.
It's
I
done.
did it last week.
It is done. We couldn't do it until April 1st. It got done as soon as the month rolled over.
Yep. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, moving on to new business, we have a discussion and action on an RFP that's in our packet for the Damon Hall and Rec Center work. This is work that was outlined in the, let me just say, the architectural report that we received and reviewed in the last few months. John, do you want to step us through it?
Sure. So it's relatively straightforward. Tom Yennerl put this together for us. He had asked for additional information to be more specific for the RFP, but to date we haven't heard back from the folks who had done the drainage assessment, Engineering Ventures, that was included in that JASW report that we all looked at 2 meetings ago, I believe, 2 or 3 meetings ago. So this is largely for the drainage work at both buildings here and at the rec center. There's some other discrete work. I think some of the roofing that was included in some of that drainage is not included in this because it didn't fit within the confines of a contractor that we would be looking at to hire for the work.
Okay.
But the roofing, those other small components were just that, small components. This captures the bulk of the work, and we can do the other ones as separate contracts with a contractor.
But we got the drawings and design from Engineering Ventures?
We have almost everything we need to move forward, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had wanted to walk outside beforehand, but we talk about the 33 lineal feet of the new concrete retaining wall, and then we have the timber retaining wall. Is that going to be fixed as well?
These retaining walls right out the door here,
Yeah,
I believe those are coming down and being replaced.
I guess it is in the first bullet point. It says.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Correct. So if there's no feedback or questions, we can get this posted to the website. We have a short list of folks who might be qualified, who we can also reach out to as well, and put it on there's an online website for contractors. Yeah, the bid registry.
Yeah. Well, I guess.
So just one thing, I know, with ARPA funds, they want them to be in good standing with the state of Vermont.
It is. These are not ARPA dollars that we are using for this.
But I mean, I think in general.
Yes.
It's probably that make sure we hire a contractor who's paying his taxes.
Yeah. Yes.
So.
We can add that bullet in.
Yeah, it's eligibility, yeah.
John, are we looking for
I'm looking for you to okay the RFP, and we will get it on the website and get this moving so we can get it done this summer.
okay, then
I make a motion.
Go ahead.
Make a motion that we advertise for the town hall and rec center drainage improvements as outlined in our packet.
Is there a second?
Oh, second.
Oh, thank you, Clyde. All in favor, say aye. Motion passes.
Great.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, how much time are you giving them to?
It's April 15th, 30 days, 45 days. We were clear when we talked about it at the previous meeting that we wanted it done this summer, if at all possible. So it's a pretty tight turnaround.
Thanks, John.
Is that yellow?
That is just Cheyenne asking folks to present to their best of their ability because she's online. So whoever is in the audience, Cheyenne would like you to speak clearly and loudly. Oh, no, not now. That was earlier, sorry. That's just during discussion. We already got you, Sherry. You're already captured.
Okay, moving on to our next item. At the last meeting and in between, we asked our listeners to join us this evening for a conversation about our appraisals and what's going on with our CLA and the COD, and the impact that any of those may have on our budget this year for the school and property taxes. So Stacy, thank you, and Bob is here, and Cheyenne is in the wings virtually. Stacy, Bob, and Cheyenne gave us a document with a definition and explanation of the CLA and the COD, and also a kind of a worksheet that shows how the CLA works to equalize the tax bill. So, Stacy, do you want to make any comments to get us going?
Only if you have any questions regarding that. Certainly I can speak a lot to it, but if you have any questions regarding that information that I gave.
First of all, thank you. It's very well written. It's clear. I'm curious, the COD, I know I skipped over the CLA, but where is there most variation as far as property sales? Is it sort of lower end, middle end, upper end? I mean, it seems as though there, from what I read into that, some strata of property seem to be more further away from fair market value than others by the common level of dispersion.
Right. So we don't really look at sales by groupings of low-end properties, middle and high-end. It's sort of more by category. So residential versus commercial versus land only. Within those, the COD seems, on the equalized sales study, the COD is higher on, so there's R1 and R2, which is R1 are residential properties with less than 6
Right.
acres, R2 more than 6 acres, and then land only. And there's wider, the COD is more widely dispersed in the land only than the R1s, the less than 6 acres, and followed sort of in third place by more than residential properties greater than 6 acres.
Stacy, I'm the coefficient of dispersion that we're talking about.
Yep.
In my reading what you wrote and your colleagues wrote and online, there's reference to neighborhoods, the concept of the value of properties in certain areas. So if I have a deluxe property, that may influence my neighbor's, the sale of my neighbor's property and vice versa. How do you measure that? Or is that, because it seems like our COD is getting out of whack as well. So how, and the COD doesn't come into play with, as the CLA does with adjusting taxes. So I guess help me with, is the COD just something that the lister assessors would be caring about and not necessarily we as a town as a whole? Or? So
basically what the COD says is, what is my property, what is the level of my property assessed at compared to my neighbors? Are we all assessed at basically the same level? Are we all assessed at 69% sort of CLA? And the further you get away from, the more you get over 20%, the more it starts showing that you have some properties that are probably assessed, you start having more variation between who's assessed at sort of what percent of fair market value. So what you're having is, somebody might be assessed at their assessed value might be actually 80% of what fair market value is. Sales have shown we have some properties that were assessed at 50% of what they sold for in fair market value. So that's a concern, because basically what it's saying is that, somebody who's assessed at 80 or 90% is proportionally paying more in taxes because they're having that CLA applied to their tax rate. That CLA is there to equalize everybody at 100%, but if I'm assessed at 80% and now you're applying that 69% CLA to it, I'm actually paying more than, at a level higher than 100% fair market value tax-wise. So that's really why I said for us listers, that's something that's of more concern, really than if we were all assessed at 69%, it's not great, really, on the one hand, but at least it would be fair and equitable. When the COD goes over 20%, you're losing fairness and equity.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
Very, very much so.
But so we'll use your neighborhood example.
Yep.
If everybody in the neighborhood has a property that is worth $250,000, I don't think you're going to see a wide COD. It's where you have one neighbor who has a 250,000, another one has a 750,000. No, it doesn't, because intuitively that's what I would think.
No, not necessarily. If my house is only worth 250,000 and that's what it's assessed at, that's good. If my neighbor's house is worth 750,000 and that's what it's assessed at, that's great. But if my neighbor's house is assessed at 750,000 or worth 750,000, but it's only assessed at 500,000.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's not so much, it's easier when you have homogeneous neighborhoods, yes. Reality is that's not Heartland. So that does make neighborhood designation more difficult.
Yeah.
That can play a very small piece of it, but it really is just about, making sure we have those neighborhood designations correct, making sure that the assessment levels are correct to the best of the ability. And so you can have different types of property next to each other, and they should still be assessed at the same level. And they're just, right now, clearly not.
But since our last appraisal, property values in Heartland have gone crazy.
Yes, yep.
But I think the point is not all of them.
Pretty much most of them.
Like, but some have gone more crazy.
Yes, and actually, right, and what that speaks to is that, there are perhaps some properties that were not assessed at the level they perhaps should have been in 2019. But until you started having sales of particular types of properties, your higher end properties, there weren't a lot of sales of those prior to 2019, 2020. We saw a lot of movement on those.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it was like, wow, okay, now we're, perhaps we didn't get that correct. Certain areas of town where we had them at an average neighborhood, well, sales sort of indicate that, and we've seen a lot of sales sort of grouped in that area. Perhaps it should have been a higher neighborhood designation with a higher neighborhood multiplier. Normally you would see this kind of change happen over, many years, not in 2, 3, 4 years at this rate.
I've always been a visual learner, so page 3 is the most significant. And I think it goes, this page goes towards answering the question that we've all been asked about: what is the effect of the CLA on the tax bill? I'm wondering if you or Bob can step through page 3 for us and explain what's on here.
Sure. So this was right. So this was pulled from, an email, and Bob kind of pulled it together. Basically what it does is it takes, based off of the estimate tax figures that the school board had put forward in some of their presentation, with the education tax rate before the CLA being $1.62, and sort of what happens when that CLA is applied to that tax rate, our current CLA of 69%. That jumps the education tax rate up to $2.35. And if you have a property that's assessed at $300,000, the list value being $3,000 times that tax rate, your tax bill $7,050. The next piece shows if we were appraised at 100%, that house at 300,000, you would lift up by that 31%. So it would actually be fair market value of roughly $434,800. You wouldn't have to apply anything to that tax rate of $1.62. So $4,348 times $1.62 tax rate, your tax bill is $7,044. So that's showing that this really all the CLA is doing is equalizing, it's making sure that the state same amount of taxes on all properties in Heartland as if they were assessed at 100% of fair market value. And that's because they want to make sure every town is paying in as if their properties were assessed at 100% fair market value.
So if this example is working, I see a couple of things. One, the coefficient of dispersion really can hit someone hard here.
Yes.
Really, really hard. And second, that Unfortunately, the school budget, one of the things that people were claiming was driving it, the CLA, is not necessarily the major culprit here. It's really some other items. I think there were some interesting articles, as there have been over the week. Truth from Montpelier, one basically saying that the attempt to change the funding to payment per student model, holding out the best hope, but they've delayed that for a while. And I forget the name of the person that was writing today about things. So I think just bringing it back to Hartland, we need to have an appraisal.
Yes.
There was an option of a statistical appraisal. We're kind of running out of time for that. What are your thoughts on getting that done in the weeks that's there?
So there's not going to be a statistical appraisal conducted or completed for this year. It's just not going to happen.
All right, I understand that the window's still open, but it's really tight.
It's not going to happen for this year. You're not going to find a contractor who's going to be able to do a statistical appraisal for this year. I think that's literally virtually impossible.
Stacey, I didn't think, in my limited non-professional reading of this, that we actually needed to go to the street to hire an appraisal. I thought that we would need to gather property information, these neighborhoods per se, do the research and essentially present that research as Mrs. Hartland.
So here's the steps for statistical reappraisal. First, you have to do a data quality study. I actually did speak with both Jen Myers and Cy Bailey both last week, and I spoke with Jen Myers again today about this because I wanted to be sure that I was giving you guys accurate information, that I clearly understood what the steps in this is and how this probably will play out.
Sure. Is that akin? Excuse me. Is that akin to what you presented to us a month or two?
A little bit different. I have some a little bit of new information.
Okay.
So just to clarify, first of all, any reappraisal must be conducted by a certified appraiser, approved by the state. We as listers, any listers of a town could potentially do either statistical or full reappraisal in their town, but we have to ask permission of the state in order to do that. And you have to meet certain qualifications. Honestly, as good as we probably are, we're probably not that good. To do a statistical reappraisal, we have to conduct a quality data study to look at whether our data is still relevant, whether it's still fairly accurate. If it varies by too great of a percentage, then you have to do a full townwide reappraisal. That we can conduct in-house. We could get that done over the course of, this summer. It's taking a sampling of about 5%, a random sampling of 5% of all of our properties, and going out and inspecting every single one of them, collecting that data, coming back, plugging that into our current CAMA systems and models, and seeing how that, if it's within about 10% that value, if it's within about 10% of its current assessed value. If we're 10% or less, then we can go ahead and find somebody to come in and do a statistical reappraisal. If it's greater than 10% variance in value, the state won't let us do a statistical reappraisal. Statistical reappraisals are, I've been quoted from a couple different appraisal sources, $75 to $80 per parcel.
Wow.
Yeah. Complete reappraisals are running $100 to $150. per parcel. So you do sort of save a little bit of money, but it's not like it's a huge savings.
So
Yep.
whenever it was you presented this information to us, you thought that it could take us 4 to 5 years to get a full reappraisal done.
It could potentially.
So-
We might be able to get one done sooner than that, but it could take that long.
So what happens then as our CLA and COD just keep going crazy?
There's nothing to be done with it until you do a reappraisal. There are no mechanisms in place. There is nothing unless the state permits, allows, or passes some other way of doing something. There is nothing that can be done to adjust them.
And what do you feel the impact of that would be if we have to wait 5 years?
Depends partly on what the market does. I mean, you know, things could swing wildly the other way, not likely, but, you know, could level out. We could stay where we are. Could continue to go crazy with prices. I mean, it's really driven by the sales market, unfortunately. That's the reality of it.
Where's the RFP for getting the full appraisal?
I have it almost completed. I didn't finish it up to present anything today because when I learned this information about being told by the DAs that we could get a statistical reappraisal done.
What is the DA?
District advisor from the state. That, you know, that was actually an option. I didn't know that it was, provided we pass the data quality study.
Right.
I went, well, let's wait and see, because do we want to put out the RFP for a statistical after we see if we pass that study? Or, you know, my thought is we're going to have to do the full reappraisal anyways. And starting next year, we're going to be on a 6-year schedule to do a full reappraisal. And right now we're in the grouping that is 6 years out from 2025. So if we follow the state schedule, unless we get something signed in a contract before January 1st, probably of next year.
I don't understand that math. I thought our last full appraisal was 2019.
Right, but the state has grouped all the towns according to where they should fall roughly in an appraisal schedule from year 1 to 6.
Based on what, do you know?
Based on when your last townwide reappraisal was.
Not on CLA or COD?
Not a whole lot of that. I mean, over 2/3 of the whole state is really out of whack with CLAs and CODs, so.
There's a question online.
Okay, I don't want to interrupt you if you're trying to thought.
That's, you know, so, you know, in thinking about whether we want to do a statistical, do we want to spend, you know, $75 times 1,600 parcels that we have when we, you know, that statistical might not hold us only for a few years. We might have to turn around, you know, the COD could go out of whack potentially again. How long will it hold is kind of an unknown.
Yeah.
It might correct us, but only for the short term. And we might still be having to do a full reappraisal in 3 or 4 years after that. So
Yeah.
it's just, I want to make sure you kind of understand that and aware of that.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing that bothers me, and I'm repeating myself here, is, you know, we're all worried about the impact of our tax statement, our property tax statement come this summer.
Yep.
And now that I've lifted up the hood and see the COD as you know, I realize I'm getting into the weeds here, but that's just creating this unequitable situation that we have. So we have two things we can't quite control here, and it's creating havoc across town on that part. So,
The thing that bothers me, and
Yeah.
someone who took a lot of statistics in college, this is just a statistical analysis, really. And I don't know why the legislature doesn't allow the towns on an interim basis to true this stuff up as we go along. We don't have that many sales per se, but once you're at 100%, you have a baseline, and then you can just monitor things. So it just doesn't get so, because it's just statistics. That's all this is.
It is, but it isn't, because what you have driving this, behind all of this, in calculating the assessments is your cost tables, your land schedule, your depreciation tables, and all of those have to be adjusted whenever you do, or potentially be adjusted. You always have to update your cost tables to current cost tables in the year you're doing the reappraisal. You always have to, what something costs to build today is not the same as what it was 2 years ago or 10 years ago. So you have to update the model in which you're putting your data to be able to calculate accurate information out on the other side.
Right, I get that.
So that's why you can't just always true up all the time, because you will just continue to get out of whack again. And it's also the way it's industry practices. The state's going to follow how property is assessed for tax purposes. This is what is done across the nation.
you had somebody.
Yep.
Waiting for me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I had an earlier conversation with Stacy, and I was very pleased with the accuracy and clarity that she has. But I sense that you guys are going to walk out of this room with a feeling of doom and gloom. And I just wanted to say that I spent the last couple of days researching what is going on at the state level. The ultimate goal is going to be to find another way to fund the Ed Fund than property taxes as a main source. And what they're doing this week is tweaking a bill in the House that will not take away the CLA, but by other means lower the tax rate increase, regardless of the CLA. So you don't need to be worried about everybody moving right away, although they won't be totally pleased with the outcome. It's going to be a lot better, I believe.
Kurt, are you talking about Kornheiser's bill?
I am talking about the Ways and Means Committee.
Yeah, she's the chair, so that's the one.
It's changing. It's changing as the day goes by. So I just got an update about an hour or so ago. So it's really moving fast, and we're trying to keep ahead of it so that when our paper comes out, we'll at least be up to date.
Okay, well, thank you, Kurt. Nikki, we asked you to come by just to, be aware and maybe contribute to. I'm not asking you to talk about the school budget per se, that's unfair, but any thoughts that you have?
I'm just hoping that the
Why don't you move up a little bit, because people are going to complain. Bring your chair.
Okay. The CLA is frustrating, and I think the coefficient of dispersion, I haven't seen that analysis yet, and that doesn't surprise me. I've heard of pretty drastic sales that scare other neighbors because they're afraid that their house is going to get appraised at that level. So I know the legislature is trying to create ways to dampen the impact of the CLA, but I don't think they're going to be able to pull it off this year. I hope that we move towards some type of system where it's not all property income tax based or property tax based in the future. And like Kurt said, that things are changing by the hour, and it's hard to work your full-time job and keep up with what's happening in the legislature. So we're really, I mean, at this point, we've cut what we can cut from the school budget. The school budget doesn't, as you saw from the calculation, you know, the school budget itself is not driving the tax increase. And we're hoping that the legislature can help us. That's all we got.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Touch base or call? I would like us, and it's your area, to really get going on that RFP.
For you next time
The
around.
town has money set aside. It's really not that. I think, you know, over the amount of time that we're talking about, maybe the next graduating class of college students will all become property assessors, and
I wish.
we'll get a number of startup companies.
I went to Sharon Academy Career Day to promote property assessment today, so maybe. I did it.
You're what?
Pretty much.
Quick comments, I'm sitting here. We as listers, we're totally on board with what Stacy said. I mean, unless, you know, if I disagreed with anything she presented, I would have said it. It's our perception as a board. I'll speak for myself. And I'm sure it's true with Cheyenne too. So there's no disagreement on what she has presented, even the iffy parts, because not everything is rock solid. There's some quite a few variables here. So I just want to share that, not only because I think it's important to know that as a group, the things that she's addressed, we've talked about, and she's right where she should be. Maybe we all together, we agree with it. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
And maybe we can work a little harder to present it a little better, but it's a fact.
Yeah. Well, I think what I would like, and again, you know, we're only suggesting approaches. Let's get the RFP for the appraisal out and get that in the works. But if a statistical analysis, if we're not going to spend any money for 5 years on that RFP, let's come to an understanding if that statistical analysis is going to, what are the pros and cons for
Right.
that?
The statistical reappraisal could get us to a better CLA number and COD numbers. It's going to shift both of those, and it might be able to be done in a much faster rate because it's a shorter study that people have to do. So that is definitely one of the upsides and advantages to it. You know, the reality is, certainly we'll put out the RFP, but there are about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reappraisal companies by which right now approved by the state that we can get a reappraisal with. And there are others on the list, but it requires changing CAMA systems, which costs anywhere from $20,000 to $80,000. So we'll put out the RFP, but it, you know, just getting out there may not get us with a full reappraisal. It's going to take some time. Statistical, we may get there more quickly.
Right.
Basically, I think our approach is going to be to try to forge ahead with the data quality study. There's no point in even going with the statistical if we don't qualify while we put forth the RFP for a full reappraisal and get in line.
Yeah, I unlike Tom, I'm not a statistician, even though I wrote software for statisticians all day long. There are many questions I have about how statistical one works when you're thinking of those examples where a recent property's been appraised up here, but the neighboring property, which should be of equal value, hasn't been. If you apply, how do you apply a rate that's equal to both of those? You know, kind of, how do you figure all that out?
Well, it's basically creating new land schedule and cost tables.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you both, and Cheyenne, thank you.
Thank you, so.
Nikki?
I just want to formally say thank you, specifically to Stacy, and I don't know how much the rest of you guys helped her, like.
The big support.
Stacy's been
We're
really
bored. We're bored.
awesome. Yeah, so just really fantastic in pulling together information, and you know, when I first saw the CLA, I was like, is this real? The amount of work she did, or the board did is fantastic, and I really appreciate them having all of our backs.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. Okay. And now moving on to the dog ordinance.
So I was hopeful to have feedback back, comments back from Jim Arbruster, the animal control officer, and he might be in attendance to talk about this in more detail. I have not seen feedback from Jim, and obviously he is not in attendance as well. So my recommendation would be to table the discussion until we have those things to move forward with this.
Yeah. My quick reaction that this newer version that we're getting from VLCT does cover some of the questions that we had when we discussed it last.
Correct.
So, okay.
Correct.
So we don't belabor this. Why don't you just look at what we have, look at VLCTs, stir, take at 350 and just bring this something back to us. I really don't want to spend a lot of time on the dog ordinance.
That can be done.
So, but I think there are some good things in this, but
okay.
I mean, we're not experts on this.
The fees, yeah.
You know, I mean,
It's really
whatever it is.
insert it.
Okay.
We're gonna table this.
Great.
We're gonna wait.
I think we're gonna wait, and then when it comes back with the fees and so on, I think we'll be able to.
It always does, doesn't it?
Okay.
But I am concerned that we spent all this money on a dog and then the owner isn't taking responsibility for payment. And what we can do in the future to try to remedy that, so that doesn't happen again.
Absolutely.
And I don't
I
know.
can't control the billing of.
No, I get that. And I'm not blaming anybody.
No, I know.
But is there a methodology? Hold on, let me finish, please. Is there something we can do? I don't know.
Right, yeah.
Because I think people that allow their dogs to run loose and are all over the place, they may not be wanting to pay it anyways.
Right.
So,
Sure, I'm sorry.
Small claims. What about small claims court?
I'm sorry.
Take you to small claims court.
and again, that's more expensive for us.
$65.
But spending 4 or 5 hours of the town manager's time or whatever, I get that. I understand. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to pay. Just because you go to small claims court.
You're right, you could win your case.
Yeah, that's right.
You may not get your money. Correct. That is, in a house, very fortunate month.
Okay, so we're done with that. Moving on then to the next item is the Jenneville Culvert.
Correct. So you have in your packet the summary from Otter Creek Engineering. It's 3 pages. We met on the 29th and opened the bids. The low bid, as you can see in the summary, was from Kurtzholz Excavation in West Windsor.
Not the low bid.
That was the low bid.
I thought there was another one.
No, but that was,
It was incomplete or
There was
something.
some other ones that had some incomplete information, but actually, I believe Kurtzholz was the lowest bid that we received.
Yes, okay.
And it Otter Creek, on our behalf, did some reference checks, and everything works out. So it is my recommendation, along with Otter Creek's, that the board approves the Kurtzall's excavation bid for $227,305 to replace the culvert along Jenneville Road, which is, I will say, significantly lower than what we were anticipating the bids coming in at. And we have a $200,000 grant from VIII to pay for the work. And as a part of the grant, we had already committed to paying $50,000 in match. So the grants and the match that we had already committed to paying will cover the entire cost of the project, barring any unforeseen changes.
Could you repeat that again, please?
So the entire project will be covered by the VIII grant and our match that we are already committed to paying.
Okay.
So we have 50,000 out of pocket.
Right, $50,000 out of pocket for the town.
Do you know how much those culverts come as a kit? They have a flanged face. And do you have any idea what they cost, the materials for that project? I'm not saying that I'm looking at how much he's charging here. I just kind of want to go look at.
I don't know off the top of my head how much those cost.
Okay.
Is there a line item?
Does this take
They're within the bid. There probably is that information
in the bid?
within the bid itself, which you don't have a copy of. All you have is the summary sheets. So if you would like.
No, well, right here, it says culvert replacement, 100, goes from 125,000 to 429,000. So,
Oh, I saw it today when I was looking. Yeah.
so it looks like Kurtzalt is at 187.
And that must include some of the work that they're doing as well.
Yeah, earthwork, yeah. So, but I'm just saying that gives you sort of a ballpark of what it costs.
In the state, they're involved, so they have to approve.
They're not. We pre my time had applied for and received a state grant to do the work.
Yeah.
That's the extent of their involvement.
Does the state show up during the job?
So I suspect Scott Jensen will show up, the stream alteration engineer, on multiple occasions to check on the process of the work, as will our engineer with Otter Creek.
Right. The engineer has a blueprint plan of the depth of the culvert and all.
They will, yes.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I mean,
Fish and Wildlife, they come down?
Fish and Wildlife may show up. It's not a rainbow trout stream.
Oh, it's not?
It's not, so they can start work after June 1. So.
yeah. I mean, the reason I'm asking these questions is because I've worked with Christian. He's really good at excavator.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
It's a nice job.
Great.
And it should be pretty straightforward.
It should be. It should be.
I mean, I just don't know if he probably knows more about it. I've built them before myself. So the state comes in and they check to make sure that the water is being moved appropriately without being dirty all the time.
Correct.
And your job is to put those culverts in without making a mess of the stream downstream so that fish don't get silted in.
Right.
Or whatever
creatures
live in the water.
Yeah.
So it's pretty regulated.
Right.
Like every contractor that would be able to do this has to do the same exact.
Yeah, so they want it at a certain depth.
Right.
Correct.
So it's quite a bit to it.
To do this, so I'm quite confident that.
Great.
When we were exploring the work on Katy Brook, the Fish and Wildlife introduced the term, it's all about sediment.
It is.
These days.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it.
So I make a motion that we accept the Kurtzalt bill for the Jenneville Road culvert replacement for 200. I can't read it. It's pretty light.
$227,305.
There you go.
Is there a second?
Oh, second.
Thank you, Clyde. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We'll get
Motion
that.
passes. Thank
So
you.
while we're talking about culverts, I think it would be nice if somebody could survey our box culverts with all these high waters and the flooding. I know of, well, I'll just use my own road. water's getting behind the wing wall on the box culvert below. So,
And I'll use my own road just north of my house. A great stone culvert is coming apart and dropping.
but I would think with all this rain we were getting that I think things are in somewhat disrepair. So if people could go around, or even maybe Two Rivers has an intern or somebody.
Yeah, I'll
And,
just,
maybe they can just do a quick survey for us.
yeah, I'll check.
But I would hate to see these things get damaged, after we've just replaced them all.
Okay.
So,
It would also be great to have an inventory that would allow us to know what's been replaced, when we think it will be replaced in the state as of some of these. And some of them, I wish we could, but I don't think we're going to replace some of the historical stone culverts with stone. But just having an inventory would be good.
Yes, yeah, I'll check in with Rita, Two Rivers, and we'll see what exists and what we can do to update it moving forward.
There are some stone culverts that are actually silted in the bottom that are making the culverts smaller. So when the floods hit, it's going over the top of them, and that could be probed or checked.
Sure.
That would be good.
Yeah.
A lot of culverts in town.
There are a lot of culverts. There's a lot of culverts in town. Not just in this town, but in all towns. Yeah, it's an issue for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before town manager, we have one more new business. That's the letter of support. That the background is Peg Marin's reached out to the town, basically saying that the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, who UVLT is going to ask for money for this project from, knows full well that we passed the article on a town meeting, but yet they would still like a letter of support. So I drafted one. I had Rob Anderegg and John take a look at it. And I'm sorry it's so late, but I'd love to get a clean copy and our signatures on it. Should people be comfortable with it?
I'm going to take one of these and test. And I'm also, this is correspondence, but this is a letter that we got in the mail today from the Upper Valley Land Trust. Essentially highlighting what you just said, Phil.
Okay.
what if we do something to the effect, Phil, that by the vote of the select board, we authorize the chair to sign or something like that? And that way we don't all have to sign it,
Okay.
That
Makes no sense.
makes it easier.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So I'll make a motion that we submit the letter of support as written and authorize the chair to sign the letter of support on behalf of the select board.
Is there a second?
I have a couple questions because so are we going to be working? I missed out on a couple of things on this. Are we getting funding of any kind?
The town is providing funding because we passed the article at town meeting in support of the project.
Yes.
Up to.
Right.
Yeah.
Are we looking for funding from the Conservation Committee, Upper Valley Land Trust?
They are looking for funding from us because they're the ones that are.
They're going to put it into
place. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got it.
They would be the property owners.
Okay. And it's been approved.
Yes.
Clyde, did you second that motion from Tom?
No, there's not. We haven't.
Oh, there's no second yet. Sorry.
I'll second the motion. Any additional discussion, questions? People are still reading. Are you ready for a vote? You said? Yeah, okay. All in favor, say aye. 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 Nay, against?
I'm gonna say aye. Yes.
Okay. And abstain?
I will abstain.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
Did she get the abstention?
Make sure she caught it. She's got it.
Okay,
She's got it. Yep.
so I'll revise this and if you want to wordsmith it.
Sure. Yeah. We'll get it done. Get it back to Peg.
Okay. Moving on to the town manager update.
Sure. So we'll start as we normally do with truck status of the highway department. We're still down 2. We were hopeful to get one back today, but the number 6, the 550 is still at the shop. There was an issue with the programming kit. They ordered the wrong one. They got a new one. We're not quite sure what the current issue is, but that one is, on the close horizon. And then the other truck, number 14, the 6-wheeler is still at the shop. That's the one that needs a transfer case. So still down 2 trucks. Speaking of culverts, earlier today, I submitted 2 applications to VTrans, to the district for one, a structures grant to look at the box culvert or the undersized culvert at Jenneville and Densmore Hill. So that grant application would be to do the engineering work. So step 1, we do the engineering work, then hopefully next year, the year after, we can get funding to do the project itself, project implementation. And the other grant application submitted today was to do some cold planing for the Brownsville Road, essentially from the county line as far as the money will take us towards the town line. It's almost 2 miles, but we might get funding to do about 1.5 miles. So taking off the top 1.5 inches of pavement and repaving it.
With what is the term you're using for
Cold planing.
Cold planing.
Okay, and would that result in aggregate that was fairly large in the surface?
No, it'll be. I'm going to say this word incorrectly. Bituminous concrete that is put back down.
Okay,
They reuse it.
okay.
And so hopefully that will extend the useful life of that section of the Brownsville Road while we focus on doing other paving projects throughout town.
Where is that stretch again?
From County Road towards the West Windsor town line.
Because up at the town line, the chunk of the road's trying to fall into the brook, right at the town line. That they
Yes, are they
repaired
looking into
after
that?
the flood last summer.
Which one?
Right near the West Windsor line, with the culvert are kind of tipping over and.
No, but we should be. And the culvert project is 90-10, so it's a 90% from the state and 10% will come from the town.
That's the Jenneville project.
That's the potential, right? Potentially the Jenneville project. Both these are, nothing's a guarantee until we have the contract in hand. But then I believe the Densmore and Jenneville.
Densmore, Jenneville.
Yeah,
right. We're looking at that.
We just submitted an application today.
Yeah.
To do that work.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the Brownsville Road would be 80-20 funding, so 80% from the state, 20% coming from the town. So,
and that's because someone looked at the tire road and said
it is because
faltering the tires.
They are it's a class 2 road grant, and we have 2 class 2 roads. We have the Brownsville Road and we have the Queechee Road. and the Queechee Road is under study already. So in order to not miss an opportunity for funding, we went to the Brownsville Road.
Okay.
Recognizing that there are other paving issues in town, but only class 2 roads were eligible.
Would that be for this year or is that next year?
That would be for this year.
For this year.
I believe so.
There is a 72-year-old metal culvert under the Brownsville Road. That Crandall Creek, better known as Weed Brook, goes through, and I wonder what the condition of that is, you know, before.
I haven't been down my favorite fishing hole in a long time.
Yeah.
Maybe we should walk in and check it out.
So these were V-Trans applications that come from the district. I met with somebody from the district. Became kind of evident in the conversation that the town had not historically been raising their hand as often as they should have been. So we put 2 hands up this year.
Great, that's good news.
So we'll see what happens. On staying on roads, we have been in contact with an engineer from Springfield to look at getting us a paving study. So how are we going to approach paving in the long term? So right now it's been a little, throw some pavement on the worst road, which Phil and I learned at a class this past week is not the most effective way to do it. So hiring an engineer to look at in essence, 6 miles of paved roads that we have about 10, but taking the 4 from the Queechee Road off the table because they are already being looked at. And we're going to get an outcome, a study from.
Who's the engineer?
So this would be potentially with Everett Hammond is the one that, was recommended to us to look at those 6 miles of paved town roads, and coming up with a plan for how to pave them and how to maintain them. He puts together a very nice report. I can forward you one that he did for the town of Westminster as an example that you can take a look at. It's using some software that is available across the state. But here's the but. It's about the price tag is about $4,000 to do the study, to do the work, to have in hand. In my opinion, it's money well spent. So we have a plan in place to look at for the next 10 or 15 years, a reference point.
I agree as well. I think it's been a long time coming. We all would like the roads that we travel on to be the ones that are at the top of the list. That's not the way we can do it.
It is not, unfortunately. So what we can do is I can be in contact with Everett and see what it would take to put a contract in place and what time frame he needs to get it done. With only 6 mile roads, I would be hopeful that it depending on his pre-existing schedule, the lead time wouldn't be terrible on that. Okay. And as relates to kind of future planning, Tom Yenrell will be at our next meeting, the first meeting in May, to go through a capital planning program with the board. We have some information that you'll see. I will send it out to you as soon as possible, so you have it in plenty of time to review and come prepared with questions. But again, looking at that long-term planning and how we're going to pay for all the things that are kind of coming at us in the future. I will say that's all roads. So now we're done with the highway department for now. There was for your information, there was a fall at the town last week. Everybody's okay. But just as an FYI, we did submit something to VLCT. So nobody was injured. Everybody's okay, but it was on the front stairs. So it's one of those things that, was highlighted in the JASW report as well, the stairs buildings.
So this is a citizen fell.
A citizen fell. That is correct. That is correct. And that is all I have for you this evening.
Okay. What was the number left in the, whatever we call it, fund?
950, just to be conservative. It's a little bit more, but it's around $950,000.
Okay. So we'll know after the RFP for Damon Hall and Rec Center, just where we are for the next,
Correct, because that's all coming out of that pot of money.
plus the engineering study. I forgot the Quitchy Road engineering study is coming out of that pot of money as well.
Yes.
Correct, but we know that that's we know that one, and we know the Mill Street Bridges, the Mill Street Bridge study. So those are set amounts that we know.
Okay.
When will we get results from Mill Street?
Both V-Trans and Heritage Engineering said spring. So.
Did the town hall submit for hazard mitigation funding for projects?
We have not submitted any HMGP applications yet. The one on Brothers Road is the one, the culvert that Phil mentioned earlier is one that jumps to the top of the list. So HMGP, following a FEMA disaster, there's 15% of the total disaster statewide is made available for grants statewide. There's 75% grants. So again, we'd be on the hook for 25% of any project costs, but there's quite a bit of money if you look at the total dollars allocated last year for the disaster, for the flooding in summer. So I believe June is the application deadline for those.
I think so. I know people in our office have been working.
But they are accepting them, I believe they're accepting them on a rolling basis as well. So we don't need to wait until the deadline to get our application in.
And I was pleased to see the grader out and about still. There actually is a pet theory of mine that anytime the grader grades a road near me, within 3 days, we have a horrendous rainstorm. I think that's,
Definitely, if you grade Jenneville, it'll bring that.
yeah, I think there's money making up for.
I don't think there's a direct correlation, but perhaps I can't.
Okay. Anything else? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
We have, there's one other piece of, I have correspondence. I have one other piece of correspondence. We got a contract from MVP Healthcare today. This takes us from January 1, so 4 months ago, through the end of this year. It's the same. All the numbers are the same. This is for the town employees. I will sign this if there's no feedback. We just got this today in the mail. I don't know if anybody wants to take a look at it. It's the same. It's the same. Nothing has changed within it. The premiums are all the same.
People like MVP?
I think so. I like it. They've done quite a bit. When I had my accident with a chainsaw, I never got a bill, so I really like it.
Wish I could say the same.
I didn't know you had an accident with the chainsaw.
Oh, I didn't get out. Oh, yeah. 5 stitches later, I got lucky.
That's lucky.
That's really
That's
lucky.
very lucky.
And like the thigh.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where mine is. I'll tell the story one more, John.
Did your wife buy you a pair of chaps?
Christmas gift from the kids.
That's what I figured.